Welcome to episode 5 of Future Tense. I will be discussing the last three amendments of the Bill of Rights with my guest today, Dr. Giancola. Welcome.
Thank you, Andrea.
Dr. Giancola is a professor emerita from Suffolk University in Boston, Massachusetts, where she served as an associate professor of philosophy and director of religious studies. Dr. Giancola is also a published author and has written many articles on ethics, comparative religion, and philosophy. May I call you Donna?
Yes.
Thank you.
Please.
Thank you. So, Donna, I understand you have a book out that you've written. Please tell us about
This
it.
is my latest book. It's called In the Name of the Goddess, a biophilic ethic. It's about the idea that all beings actually have an intrinsic idea or tendency to love life. And the question that this book raises is, do we love life enough to save it? So it takes an ecofeminist perspective and trying to incorporate some of those perspectives and principles of sustainability, interconnectedness, and taking moral responsibility for the environment and what it would actually mean to live a biophilic life. So it makes an appeal to a much broader sense of justice, which is what I believe we're here to talk about today, right?
Yes, I absolutely agree with you that we need to have a broader sense of justice these days. So just to recap the previous podcast, I examined Amendments 5, 6, and 7, and those amendments address the rights of citizens, such as the right to a trial jury, the right not to incriminate ourselves, and the right to an attorney, which are basically the principles of democracy, we hope. So now let's look at the last three amendments to the Bill of Rights. And I have what I imagine will be a very vigorous discussion. Just as an FYI, these explanations of the amendments are taken from the National Constitution Center. So the Eighth Amendment. The Eighth Amendment prevents the government from abusing its power against people accused or convicted of a crime. Okay, so it protects us in three ways. So like no excessive bail. The court cannot demand an unreasonable high amount of money to let you out of jail. Well, we know that's not true, don't we?
Yes.
That's just not true. So no excessive fines. Monetary penalties must fit the crime. So I guess that if you commit murder, if you watch on television, if you see it on TV, their bail is always set at millions of dollars. But
As
it's
opposed
television.
to, yes.
It's television. Okay. But as opposed to like Grand Theft Auto, they do the same thing for that. So we have to worry about what can people afford and how the bail system is kind of rigged against the poor.
And minorities.
That too. Yes, that's very true. So I keep having this saying from Gandhi in my head, and I think it applies here, which is poverty is violence. And I can't think of anything more violent than being sent to jail with no way to get out. Just, okay. So the other one is no cruel and unusual punishment. And allegedly, the government cannot use barbaric, torturous, or heavily disproportionate penalties. Well, I want to talk about how this amendment is being abused and the ethics or the lack thereof. Okay, so prolonged solitary confinement. Well, according to the Brennan the Brennan Center for Justice, article dated April 10th, 2019, titled Justices and Jailers are deploying mercilessness as policy and practice. An example of this would be the U.S. Supreme Court endorsed, if you can imagine this, a Missouri education likely to torture the condemned. And they endorsed the sick mistreatment of prisoners in Alabama and other jurisdictions across the country. I see this as a systemic erosion of constitutional rights of people and passes for justice in the age of Trump. So, Donna, the ethics of torturing the condemned.
It's once again, it's a typical tactic that this administration uses to dehumanize the other. And And it's also based on this very obsolete notion of what imprisonment or the purpose of it is. So it's become weaponized against all kinds of people, and it would make more sense if it was uniform, but it is not uniform. It's
Right.
designed to target certain groups and certain classifications of people, as well as certain crimes. For example, the crime of rape seems to be not necessarily as important as it used to be.
Oh, you have to prove it.
Yes, you have to
You have to prove rape. And
right.
my question is, well, who was in the room?
Right.
How do you prove that? That they say DNA. But the backlog for DNA testing on rape cases is in the thousands.
If it even comes up.
That's right.
If it even comes up.
So what I'm seeing is that practices designed to be cruel are okay with the Supreme Court.
Yes, there is a definite hint of cruelty in all of these things that we're seeing.
It just truly is remarkable. It really is. So in regard to the Alabama prisons, are known for their sexual violence, and officials have refused to fix the problem. And I believe that this dehumanizes people. If you know that you're going to be put into a system where your body is not your own, I think it allows for the pound of flesh.
Well, I don't know if it necessarily falls under this purview, but also what they are doing with immigrants and with the conditions the immigrants are experiencing.
Yeah.
I mean, we did this during World War II with the Japanese camps.
Yes, we did.
Right. And the idea that we can actually just sit back and allow for these conditions and for human beings to be treated this way. We have better animal cruelty laws than we do to protect human beings, especially, those people who are in prison for, not having the right paperwork or not dotting their I's or this type of thing. And the idea of families being torn apart, which is not even seen as something that's inherently cruel.
Which is amazing.
It's absolutely amazing.
I wonder, if it happened to them, how quickly it would disappear. So that's the Eighth Amendment. Now we're going to go to the Ninth Amendment, which establishes that people hold other rights not explicitly listed in the Constitution. Excuse me. So basically, it safeguards individual liberties. And I think an example of that is the right to vote, the right to privacy. And I like to utilize, in regard to the right to privacy, Roe v. Wade. Yes, I'm a woman. And I'm going to say something that may shock people, but I've had an abortion. I was 17.
I have too.
And there it is.
And there it is.
Okay, now I had more rights than my daughter.
And
it's absurd.
I don't think any one of us at our age would, if you had told us this was going to happen, that we would have been like, oh no, they can't do that. But we sat back. We did not follow through.
We became complacent.
We did, and we did not ensure that it was codified.
That's right. Exactly.
And we should have been suspicious of patriarchy from the beginning. There are no laws on the books that justify anything that a man has to do with their body. And yet women have all of these rules and social norms that we're supposed to conform to.
Well, you know where that comes from? And I just learned that last night. It comes from the philosophy of the radical right fascists groups, where they feel that women, and I guess the new term for these women are called trad wives.
Oh, yes.
That women, no makeup, no access to money, stay home, pop the kids, take care of the kids. That's your job, supporting your man. The end.
This is where we're going, and it's been said before, we're going backwards in history. This is your barefoot and pregnant philosophy, where women become property, and that is the next step. That's what we're seeing. And unfortunately, too many women are very happy to adopt this lifestyle, especially if there's a financial bonus attached to it. And you see it not just in lower income families, but in higher income families as well, where women marry for money.
I think they're called prenups.
Oh, okay. All right.
Right?
I don't know. I've never had one.
No, ditto. I was lucky to get a nup. Okay. So the Ninth Amendment also protects the right to travel, and this is one of my bones of contention. I get so angry about this. In this country, you're supposed to be able to travel freely between states, regardless of where you live. And when you go into one state, as long as you follow their rules, you're free to live in that new state. Okay, and that's one of the things it says, that you can move and leave freely between states, except you can't if you're a woman. If you're a woman in Texas, and it's not a state law, these are what they've done is they allow communities, cities, and counties to establish road laws, bans on people traveling. And it's specifically for pregnant women, okay, that you can't travel on the road if you're pregnant on your way to an abortion. And they claim that it's not a ban on traveling for pregnant women. It's to do the drivers, the people that take her, which is a lie, okay? Which is an absolute, I mean, I'm appalled that our country now has rules about traveling. What is the moral compass for that?
As where it always is, in the hands of men.
Okay, so my argument with that, well, I don't have an argument about that because it's true. Because we are a patriarchal society. There's no doubt about that. It's trying to move away from it, and we all know what happened with that. But women raise men.
Well,
you know? So what does that say about us?
well, there is such a thing as patriarchal women. And women who just, without thinking, accept the status quo, and as many women as men say, "Oh, let the boys be boys," and then the boys grow up to be boys.
That's a good way of putting it. Yeah, I do. Right?
But it's just one more example of the misogyny that has been allowed to run rampant in this country. And in many ways, I'm a good feminist.
I hear that.
I'm a really good feminist, and a lot of people assume that being a feminist, it means that you're anti-male. And truthfully, I'm not anti-male. I do not blame men for this.
No, we're just as guilty as...
If not more so, because we have allowed, and we've in fact helped perpetuate our own demise, our own destruction, our own lack of freedom. And when you talk about trade wives and women willing to give up their freedom for what? Financial security, moral redemption. I'm not at all sure that that's a fair trade. Sell your soul.
A lot of people, though, Donna, will sit there and say, but that's the tenet of Christianity.
There is no way that Christ taught that.
I know he was a real feminist.
Christ was a real feminist. I mean, that's that idea about men being the head of the household, that was all St. Paul. That was not any of Christ's teachings. So, if anything, Christ saw women as equal. And the bastardization of Christianity that's been allowed to take place, and its politicalization of it, has done more to hurt Christ's teachings than anything else. It's just an amazing thing. It's like, Gandhi said it best. He said there was only one Christian.
And there it is.
There it is, right?
That's exactly true. And one of the things that I have been impressed with in regard to that, we're going to digress for just a moment.
Just once? Okay, all right.
Among others,
Okay.
I'm sure. But James Tallarico did a speech that I was flabbergasted. I'm not Christian, but it struck me to the core that here was someone who was sitting there saying that he had been tweeted by Trump saying that James Tallarico, who is running for Senate in Texas, that he insults Christ. And he said, in response to this tweet from the guy, what insults Jesus is taking babies away from mothers. What insults Jesus is taking health care away from people. What insults Jesus is making them live in poverty. That insults Jesus. And I was like, wow. That was like a revelation of a new Christianity for me. But it's not new.
It's not a new Christianity.
No, it's not.
No, it's in the Christianity that was preached by Christ, and what became politicized in what Nietzsche calls Christendom.
Yeah.
Are two very, very different things. One's a political machine. The other was designed to give comfort and to give people a moral compass. Mm-hmm. And this, should we say the word hope?
Hope.
The idea that we can save ourselves through our own behavior, through our own goodness. And I think that's one of the things that's been lost in all of this is people's inherent sense of goodness. or more specifically, people's belief in our inherent goodness. You know,
that's called a conscience, right?
I'd like to take it a little deeper than that, but yeah, sure.
For this episode,
we can go with
we're going to
conscience.
call it conscience.
We can call it conscience.
So we go back to, you and I had talked previously, disclaimer, okay, that that basically our system of government before 2016 was a three-legged stool. It had ethics, morality, and a rule of law. And it seems to now just be a disc without any legs.
I was thinking, geez, we just cut off all of the legs here.
So how do we get it back? People say, well, you vote. But the way the system is being rigged.
Well, your next thing on your list is the one that really gets to me, is the gerrymandering.
Oh, yeah, I know.
Because when this is what they're afraid of, and all good fascist regimes try to control the way people vote. And this is, again, what we're seeing, the making sure the minorities don't have an equal say. And the fact that it's just being done so openly and blatantly.
Well, the philosophy for him has always been that if I say it out loud, it makes it okay.
And
he's a big proponent of Norman Vincent Peale, which is, the philosophy of if I keep saying it, it will happen.
It will happen, yes. Or people
and he's
will
been
believe
right.
it. Yeah, no. It works. It's a tactic that works.
So if I keep saying it, it becomes old news. People just sort of expect it. It becomes part of the air.
We become desensitized to cruelty.
Yes.
And I believe this is one of the things that's happened. But to answer your question of how do we get it back, it's so interesting in all of this morass of evil that we've seen. I think that what we really need is just a returning to basics. Just simple, all living beings, whether you're human or a sheepdog or a platypus, all living beings, we all need the same thing. We all need food and shelter, some sense of care, a sense of connection, and good food, clean water.
Right. Well, yeah.
This and being able to I'm not a big believer in Immanuel Kant, the philosopher, but Kant did make one very interesting point about the idea of honesty, and this is what is so lacking in our government today, that if we are not honest, and we all know that everybody is lying, then the entire social fabric of a system completely breaks down.
But isn't that the point?
That is exactly his point, so that we cannot trust what anybody is saying anymore.
Except him.
And we definitely can't trust that.
Well, but it depends on who you are.
Well, exactly.
I've known people who still, to this day think that this guy is, white bread.
Well, 37% of the population apparently still approve
of what he's doing.
Yes.
I know, it's amazing.
Isn't it amazing?
But they always approved. And I like to point out, Hitler won with 33% of the vote. Hitler did.
I did not know that.
Oh, yeah. So just because he only has, he's in the 30s doesn't mean he doesn't have the majority. Okay? So just to continue on with our amendment, the 10th Amendment.
It's good that we have the outline.
I know,
right?
Because we would be all over the place here. So the 10th Amendment establishes the principle of federalism. Basically, the Constitution states the exact powers that are granted to the federal government, like declaring war, minting money. The 10th Amendment is sort of like a catch-all for everything else. Basically, if a power is listed in the Constitution, not listed in the Constitution, it belongs to the state. If it is listed in the Constitution, it belongs to the federal government. Okay, so the 10th Amendment was ratified in 1791 to ensure the federal government would remain limited and that local communities could govern themselves. Those are called reserved state powers. That would be education, public health and safety, licensing, traffic laws, and local laws. However, there's always a catch. Okay? There is what's called a supremacy clause in the Constitution, and that allows the feds to override state laws when in conflict. Okay? So they also have the power to regulate interstate commerce. And this is where it kind of gets sticky, because this is where the Comstock Act comes in. We've all heard about the Comstock Act. That's where they want to stop medication from being sent across state lines. And this was initiated, it's a Postal Service Act, initiated by Comstock. It was passed in 1873. So they want to hang this albatross around her neck from 1873 around the neck of women. It's absurd. Anyway, it categorizes birth control and abortion-related information as obscene and illicit. Okay, again, it comes from a man. However, in the 1930s, the federal enforcement of this law was stopped. And in 1970s, Congress explicitly removed contraceptives from the statute, which brings me to how in the name of all that's normal do they attack the drug that are for the abortion. And these pills, by the way, this drug that they're trying to stop is given to women who have been raped. Hello?
But they're
well, again, they're not they're pro birth. After birth, as George Carlin said, you're on your own.
You're on your own. They may be pro-birth, but they are definitely not pro-life.
No, yeah, exactly.
Right.
They're pro-birth. That's right. So anyway, it was a Postal Service Act in regard to the mailing and medication. Now, in 2025, two women senators, Senators Smith and Balint, introduced legislation to repeal the Comstock Act as a zombie law. And a zombie law is something that's been on the books forever and nobody ever used. Okay? And to stop the interpretation that this is an abortion ban. So here we sit waiting for the ruling party. It's up to the ruling party. And I have to say that, in my personal opinion, the Democrats have been extremely lax in following up.
The Democrats have been extremely lax in so many things.
That's right. So this goes into our basic discussion, Donna. What are the principles of ethics, morality, and the rule of law?
Let's start out with something simple.
Okay.
Neighbor of mine has this little sign on her house, and it says something about, I did not grow up saying the Pledge of Allegiance and justice for all to find myself in this situation.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
And here we are with the notion of justice seems to be whatever Trump says it is on Tuesday.
And how did he get to have this kind of power?
Well, this is the thing, because I guess power is just corrupts, as we know. And I don't know what has happened to the Republican Party.
It's not the Republican Party
I used to
anymore.
have respect for the Republican Party. To just go back to your 10th Amendment.
Yeah.
It believed in limited government. We have never had government so infringing upon our personal rights as we see today.
No, but the rationale for that is that they've cut CDC, they've cut federal programs. They in their minds, because they've gotten rid of NOAA. I love this. FEMA.
Yeah.
I mean, I could go on and on. Name the government agencies that we depend on as a country. They've cut all of that. And
They're
so
all
they're saying,
social organizations that they've cut.
That's true. USAID, for instance.
Right. It's all social things. What they haven't cut
and
is...
the Poverty Law Group.
And the Poverty Law Group. What they haven't cut, though, is the government's insistence upon getting involved in our private lives.
Well, that's how they can walk into someone's house without a warrant
These days, exactly.
And that, by the way, is not constitutional.
I never thought so, but
Okay, so-
everything seems to be changing.
Right. So one of the things that people don't seem to realize, and I had this discussion with someone, and I'll tell you his response in a moment, that the minute that you set foot in the United States, you are protected under the Constitution. Doesn't matter who you are, where you belong, where you don't belong. The minute you come into the United States, you have constitutional rights. And he said to me, not my Constitution. How do you argue with somebody like that?
Well, we're living in a country that has decided that opinion is fact, and that everybody's opinion is of equal merit. And I'm sorry, that's just simply not true. Opinions are not facts, and everybody's opinion is not valuable. Does it sound elitist to say that?
No, I agree with you.
You know,
I know a lot of idiots.
Exactly.
So Yeah.
No, and here we sit where people have become into this idea of just closing themselves off to reality. I always
is
thought
that
reality was self-corrective.
But is that the media problem? Is that because they only watch, one news station over another news station? Is that?
Oh, I think it's just too easy to blame the media. It comes down to human choice.
So we're back to the morality.
We're back to morality. We'll always come back to choice. Someone once said, and this is a little off topic, but someone once said that the difference between a saint and a sinner is that a saint knows that every moment of life is a moral crisis, only insofar as every moment of life implies a choice. We always have a choice how we're going to behave, how we're going to interact, what we're going to say. Are we going to deal with this situation in a way that is opening and inclusive and that's going to promote a common good? Or are we going to retire into our own little world of solipsism? And
You have to explain what that is, honey.
solipsism is this closed-off attitude that I am absolutely right and that there is only my own feedback.
You call it egocentric.
You call it egocentric, but egocentric at least implies you think there's a difference of others.
It depends on the ego.
That's true. Well, good point.
Just saying.
We are living around people who do not understand that there really is some type of objective reality.
Okay, so what do you think of what impact do you think of this so-called this manoverse that they've got that all of a sudden has been cropping up, the manoverse where white men and young white men are feeling disrespected and not appreciated and anything else that mom hasn't done for them lately.
Well, I think they're onto something.
Okay.
What they are onto is this sense of, and I think a lot of social changes is what spurred these people, these fascists, on, is that what they were picking up on is that, I'm sorry, the times, they were a-changing.
Yeah, yes.
And in many ways, we may be seeing, the falling down of patriarchy eventually. Because women were gaining more and more power. Women were out more in the corporate world. White men were losing power to minorities.
But that all became on with the advent of civil rights.
Yes.
The Civil Rights Act.
As has been, and suddenly, it's not suddenly.
No, the Supreme Court took care of that.
Yes, but yeah, I mean, now
It's been in the last decade.
white men just got scared that they were losing control. And because of that, now this is the backlash to that.
Okay, so taking that backlash, what is, ethically speaking, the ethics of saying I'm more important than you and your needs? What is it that do you think drives people to make that kind of ethical decision to say I am more important than my neighbor? And yet they're taught that their neighbors are equal, right, to love thy neighbor as part of their tenet, their religious tenet. So how do we take that ethically and morally and balance it?
We're all a little egocentric.
Well, yes, we are. I
And
agree.
of course, we would all like to think that our opinions are the right ones and this and that. But when it gets so overblown and it's something that actually does become not just annoying, but basically unethical, and it can even go into the idea of being evil. And you see this in abusive households. You see it with abusive forms of government. And you see it everywhere from the microcosm to the macrocosm. Monkeys have the best way of dealing with this.
They beat the crap out of each other.
That's exactly right. When a monkey eats more than its share, the other monkeys will go and they will chastise that monkey that ate more than its share. And this is what human beings, at least in this country, have forgotten to do.
But isn't that what the purpose of rule of law is for?
No. So you can't legislate morality. We cannot.
Well, obviously you can, because you can no longer have, women no longer have control over their bodies. So you can legislate morality.
Well, maybe you can. Maybe you can try, but you can't make a rule to make people be good. It just
But isn't that what law is all about, though? To make people do good things, like no stealing. The theft is a bad thing, and then that is against the law. That's against the law.
Well, I'm going to go off on philosophical for a second. See, a
Oh,
lot of
okay.
people think that
Yeah.
with the advent of law or with the rule of law, society becomes moral. Now, I intend to disagree. I think with the rule of law, society had already stopped being moral. If you have to make laws that say, don't steal, people are already stealing. If you have to make a law that says, please don't kill your parents, people are already killing their parents. If you have to make a law like they have in Texas about please do not sexually abuse the sheep, people are already sexually abusing sheep. This is the problem. So most of our laws are.
I love Texas.
I'm sorry, but it's
Texas must be very upset with Texas. It's got to be. I'm sorry, but because it all, of all the crazy stuff seems to come out from the South. Let's face it.
It does. It really does.
Not just Texas. There's some crazy stuff here in Florida too, as well as other southern states.
And Texas is not the only one that has this law in the books, by the way, about the sheep thing.
I'm sure it's not. I'm
no.
sure you could find it in the middle of the country. That's not, and that probably would be cows. I'm just guessing.
Right, but most of the laws are laws against don't do this. So maybe you can make laws that will change people's behavior or make them refrain from doing some certain things out of fear of punishment. But you can't make them be good. You can't make
We're
people...
back to conscience.
We're back to conscience. And how do you get people to exercise that idea of simple, basic human integrity? And this is what we started out talking about like the returning back to basics.
Okay, so here's my thing, and I see where you're going. It's sort of like Michelle Obama saying, which was, when they go low, we go high, which was absolutely useless. Okay, but is that what?
Yeah, except that it's like if going high implies a certain amount of moral superiority.
Good point.
Yeah.
Good point.
Right,
It does, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
I would prefer somebody to roll around the mud with the guy that's doing the bad thing.
And I would prefer somebody who walked away and did the right thing.
But if you walk away, that's inaction.
No, because if you take some other action, see, it's not always an either or, and this is where they get us all messed up.
Okay.
Is that they think we either fight or we roll over and play dead. But there's another way, which is to take a different type of action.
Like, an example would be?
Two dogs. Okay, my sheepdog. I have an old Lego sheepdog. She's not a fighter. She doesn't like to fight. So rather than getting involved in a fight or rolling over, she'll just go off and do her own thing and smell a flower and disrupt that tension. And then she'll go back to that other dog.
But unfortunately, we have people who are not as...
smart as my
equal-minded.
sheepdog, yes.
Yeah. And that when you walk away from them, they follow you.
And they want to continue the battle. And there are ways that we have to be able to disengage with that.
Well, we can't. How do you disengage? How do you disengage when you have people who are armed and masked coming into your home and taking you out of your home, even though you are a citizen or in the process of doing the right thing, which is...
Oh, how do you engage as a citizen? At that point, fighting back is useless. You have to go through the system.
Well, right now the system is
corrupt. Well, Gandhi said there were only 3 ways to deal with a tyrant. One was to try and negotiate, which we know there's a bleh.
Well, yeah.
The other was non-cooperation, which is one way of trying to... Right.
Passive resistance.
Right, take a different route, non-cooperation. And then the third way is shame. And shame was very effective in actually alleviating the British control over India. Because when the world saw what was going on and the way the British were massacring...
Yeah, but those people had a moral compass. What we're dealing with here has no moral compass.
Well, this is the hard thing, because how do you shame a sociopath?
You can't.
You can't.
In fact, when I went and I read up on sociopathy for obvious reasons.
You're right.
And one of the things they say is you don't engage with them, you just walk away because you can't.
You can't, exactly.
Well, that sort of leaves us back to the ethics and the morality and the need for rule of law. But when you have someone who is in control of that rule of law, it no longer is applicable to morality and ethics.
And this is where human beings, each individual human being, see, this is, the idea of justice. We mentioned about the idea of justice for all.
Right.
I think everybody wants justice, right?
Of
even,
course.
Even the person who's so confused and discombobulated and misaligned are talking about this idea of justice. But everybody is looking for justice outside of themselves. Like it's something that we're going to find, or it's something that we're looking for the courts or the law to do. And this is where when you say, well, rule of law, justice, I've been like, no, because, and not
I understand what you're
that's
saying.
just not simply, when we look for justice outside of ourselves, we're not going to find it. I think the first place we have to begin is right at home with where we live, and learning to first and foremost be just with ourselves, to make sure that we are living balanced lives.
But you have an expectation that people are being taught the right thing. We now know that there are millions of people being taught not the right thing, in our opinion. Okay, the right thing would be, again,
Teaching civics in high school,
right.
Promoting social awareness, and
comparative
and
religious
religions,
studies, and
yes,
things that we were taught in high school.
math, science, reading. Do you remember penmanship?
Oh God!
Yeah,
But they don't do that anymore
No.
because I know they don't
Because
know how to.
They don't know how to write.
They don't know cursive.
No.
They don't know how to write a letter. They have AI doing it for them now, which is scary crap anyway. So I'm just saying, if you don't know the basics, if you don't have a foundation, you can't build them. That's my personal opinion.
I go back to, but experience eventually will teach.
Not
And
if you're not willing to learn.
Not if you're not willing to learn, but again, going back to, but majority of people are fundamentally good. Misguided, maybe, but fundamentally good.
I love that you're that positive. I tend to have my glass half empty. How about you?
It's halfway, okay?
It's halfway.
But I would prefer to look at it like
just-
there is a fundamental goodness, and I think people really want to care about things. It's that when you see the upper echelons of society behaving in such a way, it does have a negative effect on everybody's innate goodness. Why should the billionaires not have to pay taxes? And the mother of three who's starving
Right, has to pay
has to
75% of her salary
on taxes. And where is the justice in that?
There is no justice in that.
And this is what I'm saying. We've lost touch with basic ethical principles like justice.
I see what you're saying.
Right.
So right. But if I may point out that these rules that have been changed over time through basically a one party.
Yes. Yes.
That, I, me, mine. Just saying. So that there doesn't seem to be a way to get back other than they've limited us in a way to regain control over our ethics.
Oh, we've limited ourselves too.
Which is by voting.
But
That's only one avenue, except we've discovered that there is another avenue, and we found that out on January 6th.
Well, and maybe there should be another insurrection. Only this time it should be some of us who have had it with the immorality of what we're experiencing today.
Isn't that what the No Kings
March was for, which was extremely peaceful all across the country.
right? And millions and millions of
people.
And where did it get us?
Well, we don't know that it didn't have any effect.
That's true. Well, I would have to say, you're right about that because we have Republican senators who are balking at the $1.8 billion slush fund.
Right, exactly.
To pay people who are child abusers, who have pled guilty to crimes against police, who've beaten people, who defecated our Capitol, and the one person that initiated all this and the head Führer has had absolutely, it's been Teflon. It's amazing.
It is
Just
absolutely
absolutely
amazing.
amazing.
I used to say to my students, the Buddha said that one person's happiness can change the destiny of a nation. And when I would say this to my students, because they're good cynics,
Yeah.
they're very good cynics, they would look at me and they'd roll their eyes, and it's like, oh, there she goes again, right? One person's happiness can change the destiny of a nation. And I'm like, I know you don't believe that, but look at what
But they
one
do
person...
now.
Exactly. Look at what one person's evil has done.
Well,
It's changed the destiny of a nation. Now, if it works one way, why doesn't it work the other way?
okay, so to be the devil's advocate.
Of course you're going to be. Okay, go ahead.
If the rule of law, wasn't in place, we would not have the court systems saying, no, you can't do that. And that's the only place that's happening.
It's the courts.
It's through the rule of law.
Yes, and I agree. I couldn't agree with you more. I am not an anarchist here. I am not saying we should get rid of the rule of law, but I think that we need to bear in mind that the rule of law is only as good as the people who are the rulers who are creating the laws. And this is one of the reasons Trump is going after education, is to make sure that we don't have good statesmen anymore.
No,
we don't have educated people who have to understand checks and balances.
Right, yeah.
Right?
Right.
We don't want any of them. We don't want people who understand how slavery came about.
So because
Right.
we can't say slavery here in Florida anymore.
Oh, did I just do something wrong? Are there a
hope
few
so.
more words I can't say so that I could say them now?
What is it? George Carlin. Let's say those words, shall we? Okay. So basically what we're looking at is that this has become a doctrine of fear and hatred.
Oh, yes.
Okay? And the fear of the other. And my philosophy has always been, if you're born on Earth, you're not an alien. So how, other than through the educating people about people, that everybody bleeds red. Quote Shakespeare, if you prick me, do I not bleed?
Yes, well.
Okay. And here was an interesting fact that I picked up. So the hate crimes against the Muslim community is in the 290. The hate crimes against the Jewish community is 1900.
Okay.
Okay. So how we shouldn't have hate crimes in this country.
Absolutely not. Right.
But when you need to have in your synagogues and in your temples and in your mosques and in your churches, you need to have security in a country that was whole premise was to have freedom of religion, freedom of speech, freedom of the press, the freedom to be. And how quickly these freedoms have gone by the wayside. I find extremely alarming. How do we get our freedom back without violence?
We respect the laws that we do have, like the separation of church and state. Going back to basics, let's go back to the Constitution. Let's go back to enforcing the spirit of some of these laws. Rather than allowing for them to be abused and made a mockery of. The Constitution held together for many, many years until
this one guy
and these checks and balances. And the forefathers, I think, did a remarkable job in anticipating some of the problems. But what they did not anticipate was that someone could come in and take over all three branches of government.
Well,
out of the cowardice of one party.
Well, right, because they acquiesced their power. The Congress acquiesced their power to this guy.
Absolutely.
And then you have the Supreme Court
has done exactly the same thing.
Right. Say again?
They've done exactly the same thing.
Yeah, well, so the Supreme Court has said that he's not responsible for any of his actions.
So is the IRS.
Right? I mean, it's like, what? So how do we rebuild that tripod of ethics, morality, and the rule of law? And it's constantly protesting, peaceful protest, quiet resistance, peaceful resistance. again, I'm somebody who believes that if these people are down in the mud, and they are in the mud, you got to roll up your sleeves, put on your galoshes, and get in the mud with them. How else are you going to do this? And that's one of the things that the governor of California, Newsom, figured out. He did a brilliant job of rolling in the mud with these people. And the Democrats, to this day, especially in the South, refuse to acknowledge that what they have to do is roll in the mud with them, get down in, point out the bad things, acknowledge that sitting back and just saying, well, if we do good, good will, the light always wins. The light doesn't always win.
No, I mean, I believe that we have to fight. I am not saying we do not need to fight, but we need to fight with truth and justice, and not with
the American way.
Right. Well, I wasn't going to go that far, but at least with truth and justice, and not fight the way we're seeing these people fight, because I mean, there are laws of engagement here.
Gerrymandering.
Right, gerrymandering. To me, that's just sleazy. It's a sleazy way to win an election.
Yes.
And I.
Well, how else are they going to win?
Well, this is part of the problem. Is that? But do you really want to turn around and do exactly the same thing that you know is immoral?
Well, what's happened is that when they did do that, when the Democrats did do that with it, all of a sudden the Republicans are
oh no, you can't do this.
Right. Except for me and thee.
Right.
It's all about me, not about you. Right. So they're showing the fact that they are a self-serving, egocentric, power-grabbing, anything else negative I can think of as a party.
And people will figure that out. There are intelligent people in this country who will figure this out.
One hopes so. I would like to, and I love the fact that it's all Biden's fault.
This is.
Please, it's always somebody else's fault. It's never mine. It's always going to be somebody else's. So, again, that comes again to the morality question. If it's always somebody else's fault, when do you take responsibility for your actions?
Well, he never has. And obviously, people in Congress aren't either. Because they are there and they're so afraid of losing their power that they've forgotten who grants them their power.
But they keep getting reelected. So, I think it's called a safe seat, isn't it? And we even have it here locally.
Oh,
I mean, we can go down to really small area and take the commission. And the 5 people, I think 3 out of the 5 were appointed. They weren't even elected, okay? Going through the process now. And that nobody runs against them.
Well, let's be honest. First of all, it's a thankless job.
Yes, it is.
It's a thankless job, and one has to really have the time, the commitment, the intelligence, the resources to be able to do that work justice.
Well, Well, the resource. See, and here's my argument: you shouldn't have to have the resources.
No, you should not have to have the resources.
But we now have what they call dark money in politics.
Yes.
So you need to have millions of dollars to run, which automatically limits the pool.
Obviously, it does. Yes.
Which was, I think, the point.
Yes, that is a point, and this is why. I mean, we need to have better campaign laws, for example.
Right, where corporations are people, not really.
No,
corporations are buildings.
Right, and these people that are buying elections, campaign laws would certainly stop this.
But you have to have the people who are getting the campaign funds willing to limit their own access to funds. It's sort of like a catch-22.
Again, if you...
You know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean. But I think any intelligent person is going to operate on their own self-interest. And once you point out to someone it's in their own self-interest to do this, then I think people will eventually come around. I mean, look at the people. I mean, I've read countless articles of people who are just so angry at Trump because of suddenly their benefits are now being taken
Oh, well,
away.
it's always the NIMBY thing, not in my backyard.
Right, not in my backyard.
Right.
Exactly.
As
And
soon as it affects them, it's not good.
it's not good. And,
well, that's the me thing.
that is the me thing. And it is the idea of self-interest. But as soon as you point out to people, well, you voted against your own self-interest. If you allowed it to be done to others.
Right, and the response is, but he said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, then you were stupid.
Yeah, okay.
You believed it. If you're allowing something to be done to others, you also have to be willing to allow it to be done to yourself.
And that's when that saying comes in. First they came
Whoever they
for the
first came for the
Jews.
Jews.
Then they came for the Catholics,
And then the Christians and
then
women.
Then they came for me.
And there was nobody left to fight.
That's right.
Yes.
Exactly.
How old is that? That was like from
the 40s.
I think so.
30s, 40s.
From World War II, I believe. Yes,
it is, and it's still applicable today.
Absolutely.
Which is so frightening. And this is something that also I don't understand how people, ethic and moral individuals, can stand by and watch people being rounded up and put in camps. I know a concentration camp when I see one. And the fact that there are people who have had this happen to them and their families a few decades ago are okay with it
now, right?
Is staggering. I'm not okay with it.
I'm definitely not okay with it. And
what happened to the morality there?
What has happened to our morality in general? I mean, there is that bumper sticker. It's like "Make America Moral Again."
Would love to have that happen.
Couldn't we?
Yeah, it's just amazing how women are being held responsible for men's lack of self-control. Mm-hmm. And I still don't understand why I need to be responsible, And my solution to that problem, by the way, I think we talked about this, is I believe that as soon as a man has a wet dream at the age of 12 or 13, he should have a vasectomy. No problem anymore.
I think that's a great idea.
Thank you. We should make that a law.
And then maybe, Lilith and the succubus will stop visiting them at night, right? If they can't blame women, they'll just blame, some imaginary phantom demon just made me have that, right?
The fact that I have to be responsible, that I had to watch what kind of clothes I wore, because can't be suggestive.
No, you cannot be suggestive. Where did you go?
Right. How late were you? How many drinks did you have? What did you say? Did you say no?
Right. Did you scream no? Did you try to beat him off? Right.
Right. What did you do to protect yourself? Wait a minute. Wait just a minute. Where is the ethics and the morality in abusing a woman who has been sexually assaulted and making her have that baby?
Oh, that is just the whole, if they're raped or if a woman's life is at stake.
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. It does.
And women are being arrested for murder for having miscarriages. What? The medical aspect of that, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, is just incredible. And I've had this conversation with young men who think that women should just have babies, and if they don't want them, they should just give them up, that we are automatons, that we have no emotional attachment, we have no feelings, no nothing. And I get angry about this because the injustice of this and the lack of moral empathy is just incredible about women. And why do we allow it? And I want to go back, and I'm trying to think, now, was it the Trojan women that went on strike?
It was the Athenian women,
Thank
yes.
you. You know what I'm talking about?
Lysistrata and the Parliament of Women, both written by Aristophanes, yes.
Okay, right?
Yes.
So, and people who don't know this, the women got tired of what we're going through.
Right. They got tired of the war. They got tired of their money being spent.
They got tired of it all, and they went on strike, and they refused to do anything for their men. Anything.
Especially have sex.
Yeah. Anything. Didn't last long because they weren't getting any. And the women were successful.
They were successful to a certain point, yes.
Right?
Yes.
So maybe we should take a page out of the ancient Greeks, who, by the way, initiated democracy.
Yes, well, but it was an elitist democracy at best.
But it was a democracy,
right?
And they did have
They also put Socrates to death too.
For their time. So anyway, back to Donna, I want to thank you for the conversation. Please, ladies and gentlemen, if you get a chance, pick up Donna's book, In the Name of the Goddess. I think you'll find that interesting. We had a great
It's
conversation.
on Amazon.
There you are. And we will, I hope to have Donna back.
I would love to come back.
Thank you
This was fun.
This is a conversation.
Next time we're having wine, though, right?
Oh, why not?
Are you going to edit that out?
Thank you so much.
Thank you.